These first 10 problems on this handout are basically going to be questions where you go through and you just identify the angle relationship that you notice. And if you look at the instructions, it says identify them as corresponding, alternate interior, alternate exterior, or consecutive interior. I'll cross that consecutive out. That's another name for it, but we call those same side. So what I want you guys to do is to go through, and we're not going to do this as a class, meaning not all together, but I want you individually to go through these 10 problems, see if you can identify, use your abbreviations, and identify for 1 through 10 what the angle relationship in the diagram is. Okay, so these are the answers to the first 10. I know I don't have all 10 of them on screen. So 7 and 8 are down here at the very bottom. You can see where they're associated with 7, 8. 9 and 10 I have in the bottom right corner. So I want you to compare as many as you got done. Make sure you're doing it right. If you got 5 of them done and you got 5 of them right, you're probably going to get the other 5 right too. It is a possibility you can make a mistake, but this first section is not really representative of anything you'd ever see on a test. The rest of this worksheet would be more likely what you'd see on the test. All right, any questions on the first part? All right, you're always asking that question, are they on the same side? Are they on the interior or exterior? If it's corresponding, you're going to see that they're, like number 3, they're both on the bottom right of the intersection, which makes them correspond in position. All right. So from there, let's move on to the next part. And we'll just look at a couple of these. It won't take us but a minute. Let's look at number 11. All right, so number 11, we're actually getting numbers on these. It's not just A and B or X and Y. We've got an unknown and we've got an angle that's given. So the very first thing we're going to do with all these problems, like we've already seen, is we're going to identify the correct angle relationship. So what angle relationship do you guys see here? AEA. Now here's a trick. It's not much of a trick, but if you go ahead and draw the arcs on the angles, that can sometimes help give you a visual cue. And I think it's helpful for more people to be able to do that. So I would make a habit of doing it, marking your angles, and then you can say, okay, now that's ringing a bell. Those are alternate exterior. They're on the opposite side of the transversal, outside of the parallel lines, AEA. We want to identify that every time. The instructions don't tell you to do that necessarily, but I'm telling you to do that. So make sure you write out which one of these you're using. Now, AEA, are those congruent or supplementary? A quick visual check should tell you, are these two angles going to be congruent to each other or supplementary? They're going to be congruent because they're both obtuse. All right, so that tells us right here that our unknown angle x is going to have to equal the angle 110. So this is another one of those situations where not only is our equation set up right, but now it's also our answer. There's no calculations required. But we need to set the equation up correctly, otherwise we'll get a wrong answer. So there it is. So let's look at number 13 and see what can happen. First of all, what is this angle relationship? It's SSI, and yeah, you jumped ahead. Those are supplementary. So I'll go ahead and show that. This is going to be SSI, and because it's SSI, same side interior, those are supplementary. So I'll say that 100 plus our unknown angle x will add up to 180. This is what your equation should look like. Now it's a straightforward one to solve. X equals what? 80. Pretty simple, but if you're not careful, you'll set it up wrong and get x equals 100. All right, so those kinds of problems are pretty straightforward, especially because all these are either supplementary or congruent. So there's not going to be a lot of calculations there. So let's jump to the very end. You've got these problems, 19 through 24, where they give you expressions, but they only want you to solve for x. So you'll either set these two equal to each other, if it's one of those types of angle relationships, or you'll add them up and set it equal to 180 if it's one of those. I'm not going to do any of these. You guys can figure that out, set it equal to, or set the equation up correctly, and then solve for x. I want to jump to look at problem number 27. So the difference here in the very last part of this is that they don't want you to just solve for x. They want you to figure out the angle in bold. Okay, so the angle for number 27 that's been bolded is this one that's called 6x. But I also have this angle 5x plus 10. What is that angle relationship? Number 27. All right, but we want to name the angle relationship first. Not congruent. Corresponding angles. Now, we'll come to the congruent part in a second. So those are corresponding angles. They're both on the bottom right. We happen to get all these that always are on the bottom right, but they can be anywhere. So bottom right, same relative position, so they're corresponding angles. Corresponding angles, congruent or supplementary? Congruent. So now we can set it up as 6x equals 5x plus 10. Not a difficult equation. I hope it's not for you. What do we do? Well, there's an easy one-step way we can solve this. Subtract that 5x. You want to get all the x's on the same side. So I'll subtract 5x from the right, subtract 5x from the left. These cancel out. On the right, I still have 10, but what do I have on the left now? Just x. So very simple equation. But this is where you're going to want to probably call it good and move on. Say, that's my answer, move ahead. That's not what we're doing with this problem. We're solving for this angle 6x. Not hard to do, you just have to remember to do it. So what do we do to solve for that angle? Plug 10 right back into it. So now we've got 6 times 10. All right, 60 degrees. That's our final answer. All right, does that make sense? Make sure for every problem that you've got the angle relationship shown. In fact, I'll put a box around that one. Oops. We'll put a box around that one so that's part of our answer. Okay, if you guys can go through this and understand it all, we're going to get some more practice tomorrow. And be prepared to introduce some more next week. But basically, that's what we've got.